So, according to Wikipedia, Burning is a 2018 South Korean psychological thriller mystery drama film. What a mouthful.
Wow, that
Co
is a big
co-written,
mouthful.
co-written and co-produced and directed by Lee Chang-dong. And from what I know, Lee Chang-dong is like a legendary filmmaker for sure.
Mm-hmm.
His last film was like in 2010, so people are very excited for this new release. And his films usually tackle very like hard punching subjects in society, like let's say a mother who tragically loses her son and like turns to Christianity, but kind of hardcore. Like that's his kind of style for sure. So Burning, do you want me to introduce like a general plot of Burning or like?
You can just give a little synopsis and then why you recommended the film, why you thought it'd be fun to talk about, and then we give our like thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I believe from what I've seen from his other movies, Burning is a lot more slow. It's much more representative of like actual reality. And what that does is like really create a creeping sense of like, I don't know, impending doom. But basically the main synopsis is that this guy, the main character his name is Soo, and he's a very just normal guy. Like there's like really nothing about him that's interesting at first. He meets another girl, Han-mi, who is also not very interesting, kind of odd. She seems to be kind of trying to find her own purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
Then a third picture happens, a third person. There's only three characters in this movie pretty much. The third person, Ben, enters the picture when Han-mi goes to Africa for a random reason. Comes back with Ben.
I mean, we can talk about her reason. I feel like her reason.
There is a good reason. There is a good reason. But comes back with Ben. And Ben seems like at first a sociopath. Like right away, right away, Chang-soo like sees him as like his opponent pretty much. Maybe his actions don't seem very hostile to other people, but to him, Ben's actions scream like, this is my opponent. This guy's weird and wrong, and he's a villain. Ben's weird. Like he's rich. He feels like a foreigner too. Like he doesn't act or sound like a normal native Korean. And that was on purpose actually, because the actor, what was his name again? I forgot. Like
Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen Yuen. Stephen
Yuen.
Himself isn't super fluent in Korean, which is why he was casted for the role. So he feels like an alien in this Korean country, which is weird.
Oh, that's cool. That makes a lot of. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and then throughout the movie, it's like these awkward as hell interactions with like Ben and Han-mi.
Okay, we can dive into more like spoiler plot lines later, but you can just tell us like why you wanted to talk about this movie, like why you decided to pick this one when we asked you for a film.
Yes. So I've heard a lot about this film, which is why I just like wanted to watch it. A lot of the filmmaker YouTubers I watched talked about how it's like really good, really interesting to talk about and stuff. So yeah, I just watched it and I didn't know what to expect at all. And it was 100% a slow experience, but by the third act, I felt like so uncomfortable. It was a weird experience watching this film. But afterwards, after collecting my thoughts and stuff and like watching like one video essay on it, right? Because like those kind of helped me like formulate my thoughts more. Yeah, it like really like kind of blew me away actually, which is weird because like usually like maybe I'm blown away like right after the film. But this movie was like, whoa, that did all that to me, but very like subliminally. I didn't realize it at all. So I think the film is extremely worth talking about because of those subliminal reasonings, and also how there are so many interpretations you could have in the film. There's so many points where you can think one thing or think the other because the film doesn't give you enough information to confirm your conclusion, which is super cool. I think that's the main reason why I want to talk about it, because like I think we all will have different interpretations of this film.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to bring up my interpretation. Before we get into like the ending, let's actually try to do a non-spoiler for like the first like half.
That'll be kind of hard.
We'll just try to break down characters, I guess, first, or like just our general thoughts on the movie.
All right, let's start with the main character then, right?
Oh yeah, let's have everyone give their thoughts on the movie first.
Okay. Oh yeah. Let's talk about our initial experience watching the film and reactions.
Parvati or Emma can go first.
I guess I'll go. Yeah, I was really excited because I had also heard a lot about the movie, but like also nothing at the same time. Like I had just been told it's a very good movie, but I had never been told like exactly why or like what about it is good. So I was excited to watch it because um the Korean movies that I have seen have been fantastic. And that doesn't mean that every Korean movie is good, but like
That's
I was excited
racist.
for this
I'm
one.
just kidding.
Positive
But I was
racism.
really excited for this one because also I think Alex has a good taste in movies too, so I was pretty excited. And
Thank you.
yeah, but like I think going into it too, I expected to be more interested in like the beginning parts versus like having to wait until the very ending for all of it to kind of like come together sort of. And so like I definitely felt that feeling of like impending doom throughout the entire like first two acts and eventually in the third act when all of it is actually coming together. But for a lot of it too, I was a little bit like, this is really slow and I really want more to be happening. But at the same time, I appreciated the way that it was like it all played out in the end too. But I think like personally, I do tend to like slower cinema, but this was just a little bit too slow for my taste. Um, but I will just say like the performances were incredible enough for me to just want to keep watching anyway, and also just like I really wanted to know what was going to happen in the end too. So it was a really good watch, and I do feel like I stayed up thinking about it for so long too because I was like, wait, and then this happened and then this happened, and I was like connecting all these things I had seen like earlier in the film too. So I agree there's so much that anyone can really take away from it on whatever level it is too. And also I think on whatever level of like pessimism and like optimism you kind of range on too for those kinds of things. And yeah, I generally really enjoy films that like bring up somewhat taboo subjects or like subjects that are really like they are realistic and they really do happen in real life, but people don't really like to talk about them. I really like films that bring that up and kind of give you all the pieces and the clues, but they don't give you the final answer. So I personally enjoyed the overall like message and whatever it does give you. But I think in its delivery, it was a little slow for me. But yeah, overall, I really liked it though.
Mhm.
Cool. Emma, you want to go?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, my thing was lagging a bit, so I don't know if there was a long pause between when you asked that question or not. But anyways,
Answer the question.
No. I would say that my reaction to it is pretty similar to Parvati's as well. I definitely didn't know anything about the movie going into it, although I had seen the poster for it on Netflix.
I love the poster so much.
Yeah, the poster is beautiful. So when you recommended it, I went, oh yeah, that poster. I've seen that. So
yeah, it's really striking. Yeah, it's a really striking poster.
It's beautiful. I love the colors in it too. So I also think that the pacing and the length of the film, definitely you feel it. And I sometimes like that in films. Like there's a few films I would say are you feel how long it is, but I still like the outcome and the payback for it. But I think that this one also was just a little bit, you feel the length a little bit too much. But overall, like the message in it was really cool. I love films where you can just sit down with a group of people and constantly talk about every single aspect of it and rip it apart and just talk about anything and everything in it. I love films like that. So part of me really likes it, part of me like not so much. It's kind of conflicting. But I also, when you were saying how you didn't get like the feeling that you liked it until after the fact, I love when that happens because it's so confusing. Because when you like sit and collect your thoughts and then it sits with you for a really long time, it's so strange because that's such a rare feeling to get after watching a film. But I've definitely felt that way with a couple of films before.
Yeah, I think it's infinitely better to like a film the more you think about it than like hate it the more you think about it. I think that's most films in Hollywood where you like the more you think about it, it's like more of a flawed experience.
Yeah, because you kind of like start to pick pieces out of your head.
Yeah,
I think because the movie, because it gives you 2 + 2 instead of 4, that's what makes it so like compelling to think about. Essentially,
that's perfect.
Yeah, because
that's a cool way to put it.
Yeah, well, that's not I didn't steal that from anything. I promise. I totally did. I totally stole that from
Video essay.
probably whatever video essay I watched. I haven't watched any on Burning though, because I actually wanted to hear all of your thoughts first. But yeah, so I want to before I go into my thoughts, I want to apologize. I confused this movie for Shoplifters. When we talked about it.
That's also racist.
Okay.
Wow, you guys
they
are
both
so
came out. They're both the
problematic.
foreign language films that came out in 2018. So I was like, well, which one is it? Which one? No, I'm just saying because last week
I know.
when Parvati gave the recommendation, I called out the poster, The Shoplifters, and I mixed it up. So yeah, but I watched both movies in preparation for this podcast.
Wow, Shoplifters. I haven't watched that.
Oh my god, I loved it. But like, you know, that's a discussion for another day. I might actually recommend that.
I'll watch it.
Sure. But yeah, so Burning. Yeah, so I had a little like film festival, watched these back to back. So like, yeah, talk about like a long night for me. But yeah, so as everyone said, like, you know, the pace, like obviously that's the most notable aspect for like that first half, especially for me. That first half is kind of a slow burn. No? Okay. Okay. But yeah, I think the movie can be divided essentially into two halves. The midpoint being, well, we know this scene. It's the dancing Twilight scene, if like that's a good way to describe it. Yeah, and the first half, that's like the pace really hit me there. But the second half I thought was a masterfully crafted mystery. And I think it wouldn't have worked as well as it did if the first half hadn't been as patient as it was. Patience always a word I like to use to describe movies, and sometimes it's kind of like a cliche, but I really feel like this was a patient film.
Definitely.
And it took its time where it needed to. And I think the payoff was essentially worth it. I know like the ending can feel kind of like missing because like we don't get a full concrete answer, but I think it gives you enough to let you make your own conclusions. And I think that's enough to leave me like satisfied with the film. And I really enjoyed it. That second half was so impressive. The performances are great, especially Stephen. I can't pronounce his last name. Yuen. Stephen Yuen. Yeah, I've only seen him like in The Walking Dead. Sorry to bother you. I guess he's in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of weird to see him speak Korean, but how you describe it, like he's like an alien. It's like if we're not used to him, it completely makes sense. And I think he was the best aspect in terms of the performances and the characters in this movie.
I agree.
Yeah. So we can like dive into all these characters and I guess more of the mystery. We can talk more about spoilers now, I guess. But
right. Sign the spoiler alert.
Yeah, this is the spoiler alert. Skip to this time code no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Yeah, so the first half of the movie. So we start with the main character. What's his name? Lee, essentially.
Jong-soo.
Yeah, he is kind of like that loner protagonist. Like, yeah, it is. It's like I feel like that's kind of a cliche in films a lot. It's like no real friends. You know, it's just like floating, like no real stable job, and he's an aspiring writer. It's like, oh, another like, you know, writer protagonist.
Another indie film.
Essentially, yeah. It kind of, you know, makes you project onto him. But yeah, so it's like I think that makes the girl a lot more interesting, considering how like uninterested this guy is. It makes the girl seem so unique, and you understand that that's why he has such a fascination with her. Makes him kind of like an incel type of main character. But it works for the conflict, because when Ben shows up in the airport, Stephen Yeun's character, the primary conflict that drives the first half is this like love triangle. And it's like, what is this girl? What is this guy? What does he do? And one of my favorite lines is when he asks what he does, and he's like, I play. Like, what? What does that mean? He plays.
Sociopath, yeah.
When he said he never cried, it reminded me of Timothée Chalamet in Lady Bird when he's like, I haven't lied in 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to talk about that scene too, the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
When they're eating together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that scene is like pretty much the first confrontation with like all three characters, and especially against Ben and Chang-soo. And man, that was pretty much, there's a shot, the first shot in that scene was like all three of them together, right? Like they're just talking. But the more Ben starts talking, like, oh, like I haven't seen a human cry, you know? Like what a weird thing to say. And when he says that, the camera is immediately on him and only Chang-soo. So now the confrontation is between them. And we see the whole film through Chang-soo's perspective. So immediately we already feel this opposition towards Ben. And maybe his words aren't that psychotic, but like from what he said, that's like really weird. And like, why would he say that? What are your thoughts on that scene, JJ?
Well, yeah, I felt like that the mystery of who Ben is really drives the first film. And like, you know, it's like, oh, we have this established relationship between the male lead and the female lead. It's like, oh, they should be together. But then this guy comes in and he seems like the most perfect dude. It's like, oh, I recognize this like popular Hollywood actor now. And now he's coming in and he's giving all these vague conversations. And then like the reveal of what his car is too, compared to like the guy's like dingy pickup truck. It's like, whoa, like what does this guy do? And he gives like his vague job.
Yeah, the Porsche to me is like a literal slap to Chang-soo's face, and it's like another object of hate. It's another reason to hate this Ben character. And I think the whole movie pretty much, we'll talk about it more, but like it's trying to make us hate Ben or think that his actions are like out of malice and not like normal but weird.
When I first saw this scene, it didn't strike me necessarily of him being a sociopath either. It kind of just like struck me as like this is kind of like a privilege kind of thing. Like I thought it was going to be more of a battle between like needing to like talking about like the privilege of like being of a higher like financial status of all of these things too. So I definitely thought it was going in that kind of direction more than like the direction of like him being not normal as a person. And I also thought that the story would have revolved more around Han-mi more than Ben actually too, because I was seeing all of this play out, but she like maybe it was her performance or the way that she like held both of them like together, like all of them together as a group. The only reason why they're all together is because of her. I really thought that she was going to be like the driving force of the entire story, meaning like the main person that everyone is actually focusing on. So I didn't think much of Ben when I first saw all of those things, because I just figured he was that like side character who's like rich, but then in the end the like guy with the better personality wins kind of thing.
Oh my god,
so
like
I really
an indie
thought
movie.
No, exactly. I really
comedy.
thought it was going to go in that direction, but I was very wrong.
Very wrong. The ending is insane. We'll talk about that later. But yeah.
True.
Yeah. I just want to talk about Steven Yeun's performance. Everyone on Letterboxd talked about this too, but his yawning scene, the scene where he at the dinner party with all his friends and he gives this yawn and then he just looks at what's our main character's name?
Jung-soo.
Yeah, and he just gives him like this look. And it's so good. It's like so much mystery, and it's like, does he care about this girl? Like, why did he yawn? And then it's just like, why are his friends like so judgmental? And the scene's so awkward, and it's like, why have they brought her here? It's just setting up. It's like you're building like the world that these characters are inhabiting in your head, essentially.
Like the yawning scene is like, in Jung-soo's perspective, it's like evil. This guy's like a psychopath. Why is he yawning in a crowd party, you know? Like, is he even human? But to maybe like an onlooker, he's just yawning like normally. And I think the film is trying to force us to separate ourselves from like Jung-soo's perspective. Because like when he's yawning, that's literally in his POV.
It sets up for later too. Like that is like foreshadowing when he yawns in the second dinner party scene, and you start to like connect dots. It's like, oh, we're hitting the same steps we did before. And the mystery continues. I just want to talk about the second girl. Her like personality trait is she's always late. Like that was just
Nice.
like she was late for like tea, and then the second time at the apartment she was late again and she let the cat out. That's just she's the late girl.
That's character development.
I love it. I love the character. Favorite character. No.
It's just a neat, like they're giving like the tertiary characters like some detail. Like it could have just been another random girl, but they gave her like great, which is really funny.
And
I like
if we're since we're talking about Ben still, I have a few other things. Like when he talks about cooking, right? He says like it's like an offering to a god, but he's cooking to himself as if he thinks he's a god. It's like he's just like who does that? Like who cooks? Who sees cooking for himself like
Who
an
cooks for
offering to a god?
themselves?
No,
That's how everyone should treat cooking for themselves.
yeah. He's
I'm
like
just cooking for a god.
yeah, the dude thinks he's a deity.
No, I think it's a great contrast with I already forgot his name.
Jung-soo. Yeah, I was gonna bring it up, but go on. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jung-soo, they asked him like, "Can you cook?" And essentially, he's like, "Oh, I live by myself, so
Like
I
he
guess."
has to.
Oh, yeah. He's like, "I have to," just a little bit, and then it's like a more humble kind of answer.
Yeah, it's like survival for him, but like for Ben, it's like for fun, and that goes towards everything in his life. Like everything is kind of for fun.
We could all give like our interpretations of like what we think he does at the end. I mean, like Emma, what did you think of Ben?
Okay, so I was gonna bring this up because I thought this was interesting, but I didn't really like Jung-soo at the beginning of the movie, like at all.
Incel main character.
I was going, yeah, I know. I
never really liked
him. I know
him.
other people could
Same, actually.
So when like Ben showed up and it was kind of like put you against Ben, I was a little like, well, I don't know yet. I don't know. He seems fun.
Were you trying to choose between two of them, like The Bachelors?
No. I was just kind of like, I don't want to hate this character. Stop trying to make me hate him. But then it's like, oh God.
Right.
So I'm just sitting here. I'm hating both of the male characters, main male leads. But, I was kind of just, I liked Ben's character because a lot of it was that like awkward, really confused, like what is this guy? What does he do? What is he like here for? But I kind of find it like comedic in many scenes, so I was enjoying it. I thought his character was way more interesting than Jung-soo's, but
yeah. In a way, he's like also like could be the main character. Yeah.
But definitely.
I think he also poses this. Yeah, I think he also poses this like ideal character of like what like a girl would want in someone, kind of like this rich guy who's like attractive and has nice cars and all like a nice house and all these things too. So it's cool to see like him pitted against like this person that is just seems so like ordinary or even below ordinary, and just like someone who like drags his feet everywhere he walks and like just kind of doesn't seem to have any concrete purpose. So versus like someone who does seem to have purpose, but you don't really know what it is. So
He plays.
I just thought it was interesting.
He plays.
Yeah.
What a good line.
I love that line. Now I think that's awesome. Just delivery and everything.
What does it mean? No.
Because I also think about like, what if I was in that situation where I had to choose between the two, and it's like obviously I feel like I would obviously choose the rich guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
the,
like
the hot rich guy.
I would get out of
I'd
it
choose Steven Yeun.
as fast as possible.
Yeah. No,
Steven
okay,
Yeun.
because also it's like I feel like it's just like the perfect trap for someone too, almost. Like it's just the perfect, like if this is an offering that's being given to you, you're obviously gonna take it because it's everything everyone kind of really wants when they talk about like wanting to be with someone, or like, like they're rich, they're charismatic, they're attractive, like all of these things. It just feels like the perfect person, but that kind of adds to like how well he can play his game. So that's very cool.
I think
Very
like
cool.
perfection is sometimes scary. It's like sometimes things are too good to be true in a way. And like I wasn't particularly rooting for any of these two guys to get with this girl.
Same.
I feel like my driving force for that first half was just to find out what Ben does and what Hi Me is like what she's such a naive character too. It's kind of like a manic pixie dream girl in a way, but not essentially. It's like that's why it's just like this another like dude like incel main character just trying to like
I was on her side. I'll choose her. I'm on her team.
You're on her side. She's gone at the end.
I know.
She's gone.
I don't care.
We'll talk about like what we think happened to her later, but yeah.
Yeah, no. I liked her the most. That's
I mean,
my
we can talk about her right now, like just like
maybe let's talk about Jung-soo since we've been referring to him during Ben.
incel.
That's it.
Or
Yeah.
simp.
Moving
know,
on.
I guess like incel because of his things what he does at the end. But so interesting. I feel like he's someone who's just like, floating through life, and he has all these problems that he's not addressing. Like he's got this one cow that he's friendly to, but it's like, he's obviously got to get rid of it. He's not the correct person to take care of this cow.
Yeah.
He's got his dad who's facing time in prison. He's got his mom who hasn't talked to him, and a sister who's assumed like successful. And meanwhile, he just lives alone in his childhood home on the border of North and South Korea, which is a really interesting place to be. But yeah, well, I think that just adds to it. He seems to always be like, everything around him seems to be in conflict, except for him. He just seems to just be floating through life. He wants to be a writer, which is such a like he's not even writing. So it's kind of just like a thing for him to say. So it's just like, what are you going to do with this character? It's another one of those like loser dude bro types, as I keep saying, because he is. That's essentially what he is.
He's a loser bro.
Yeah, loser bro. Yeah. What were your guys' thoughts on his like introduction of him just working, and we basically see his like daily life essentially in that first half of the movie?
Yeah, I think when we first see him, it's like there's nothing there. So the rest of the movie is us trying to figure out who he is. And we don't completely get an answer, but then we do see like by the end, we obviously know that he's filled with this like unknown anger, like tied from his surroundings. And as you mentioned, like his home is a shackle because like his situation with his dad and stuff, like he can't move on for himself pretty much. And because of that, and also the calf might be like a symbol. It's like the calf is him shackled. I don't know.
Whoa. Cinema.
Yeah, basically Chang-Soo is a cow. That's his character.
He's a cow.
Yeah, but basically Chang-Soo's character is pretty much, he's trying to look for answers from other characters. Like when Hanmi comes into his life, he sees her as the answer. He has no choice but to consider her as his new dream, because like, she talks about like their past and stuff that he forgot. And it's like he forgot his past, and it's like he doesn't even know what his future is going to be. So the fact that she knows his past, it's like, oh, like maybe she does care about me, or like maybe like, I don't know, like she's the only source of like attention he can get. Yeah, that's what I had to say.
Yeah, and just to add on to that too, like it's pretty apparent like when we do learn everything that has happened in his past, that like life in general had just been really unfair to him, where he had like a family, but a lot of it was broken down. All these things that happened in his life are just really unfortunate things that he probably tries to push away because it's really painful to think about, and he's kind of stuck in all of it even though he's not addressing any of it. But Hanmei comes in, and she's like this opportunity that's presented to him because she kind of fits herself into his life instead of him having to come across it. So it's kind of interesting because it's like this new thing that he feels is like an inviting force of him wanting to try to achieve this kind of goal, which is like being with her, because there's finally this good thing that has invited him into some kind of space to succeed at something or finally find some kind of happiness in his life too, which is why so much of this is a driving force for his for everything. So which is why he like prioritizes her over everything else he has to be doing too. And so it's just interesting to see like someone who kind of had a hopeless life, like a terrible life of disappointment and things, suddenly having some kind of force to keep him going, but that force ends up turning out bad again. And it's sad, but at the same time, I think it's very realistic of a lot of the sad things that happen in life and things. And it makes me feel like rooting for him more, knowing that like so many things have just gone terribly in his life and he just needs like something to keep him going. But yeah, that doesn't mean I necessarily like him as a person, but like I do feel bad for him for the majority of it.
It's a pitiful kind of main character. But to what you said about Haimi's like influence on his life, like you start to see him do things like once he meets her, like he starts to like get people to sign this petition, even though his dad was like not a friendly person, and he like eventually tries to look for someone to sell his cow. So like you can see the influence this girl has on his life and why like he is so like taken out of it when she disappears essentially. Yeah,
I think another very notable scene is like when they're having sex for the first time. Like then he looks at her backpack, and like that was initially like, why is he looking at the backpack? But then I realized, oh wait, that's like her childhood backpack when they knew each other from school. And it's like a weird reminder. It's like, wait, maybe like the backpack maybe represents like a window into his past, because like he seems like he doesn't even remember like, you know, his childhood or whatever. And also as a child, like he was a jerk to her apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's having sex with a person he apparently bullied and like has no close relation to. That's weird. I don't exactly know what to say about it, but what do you guys think about that part?
I thought he was looking at the sunlight, because was there a part where he looked at the backpack? I don't remember.
It was a backpack. It was a backpack and the light, but it was, I think, mostly
Okay,
the backpack.
I think I was more taken by the light because she was mentioning how
too.
the sunlight bounces off the tower.
Right, yeah. The light is also a big focus, but I looked at the backpack for some reason. So
that makes complete sense though. Like his whole history with her, even when they first met, it's like, you know, remember me? I'm pretty now. I'll get into like her plastic surgery. I feel like that's like a clue into like her whereabouts.
That's a South Korean societal thing. Yeah.
So I feel like sunlight is introduced in that scene, and then it plays a lot later with her always like calling out. Can we just talk about the girl now? So
all right, Hanmi time.
But yes, she's when she goes to Africa, she becomes obsessed with the sun. Well, and she's already kind of obsessed when she's talking about, I only get light like once a day, or when it like shines at this exact moment. And the sun to her, I think, represents like disappearance, and it's the great hunger she's looking for to like disappear into life. And the scene in the movie where she dances, the most like visually jarring but visually beautiful scene when she dances, and it's with the sunset, and that's the last time we also see her. So I think like the sun plays into like her whole like character and like her personality and how she wants to disappear essentially. And I found it really cool how it's like there's only like a glimmer of her left, and like when you're talking about them having sex, like that could be like what's left of her essentially, and she's like the last person she knows because like she's also cut off from all her family. So yeah, that was like my whole spiel from your bedroom sex scene, I guess.
Yes, sir. Bedroom sex.
Bedroom sex. Woo!
I think for me, like a lot of the points of like her being like, oh, you used to bully me, but now I'm really attractive, so let's like do this thing. It kind of struck me as like is this like some kind of revenge story? Like, is something gonna happen in terms of like
I can see that
he bullied her so much that like she was traumatized enough to like want to do all of these things, or like there's a reason why she's pulling him back in, like she planned this. Because like she knew him from the start when she handed him like the number paper for like the raffle or whatever that they were doing in the very beginning when you first meet her too. And so like from then on, I was like, everything she seems to be doing seems very, very planned. And it struck me as just being a little bit more than like a coincidence that they just met there, or a little bit more than like her just inviting him over to feed her cat. And like I feel like you generally feel that way throughout most of their interactions too. So I genuinely thought that this movie was going to go in a direction of a revenge film almost, and it aligned pretty well with like you also meeting Ben's character too. So I really felt like maybe a lot of the reason why Jung-soo couldn't remember a lot of his childhood is because the director wants to like block the audience from really seeing the reality of like what he actually did do in his childhood, and that it would turn into this whole like revenge theme of like, this is actually really bad stuff you did to me that impacted me as a child. But yeah, that's how I like interpreted all of that before everything ended up playing out. But I really enjoy like the recurring like themes of like sunlight, and just like how she describes like the sun setting when she is in Africa, about how it turns like, it at first it's like yellow, then it turns like this fiery red, and then it turns into this navy blue color, because in the scene when she is dancing, they like pan over so that it does the same kind of progressions too. And it's just beautiful because you can actually see like how poetically she feels about this feeling of like a sun setting into the darkness, and how emotional she is, how emotionally she responds to this natural phenomenon that happens every single day, but how attached she is to its like physicality and it being there. And I really like the metaphor you made, JJ, of like of her wanting to kind of disappear into the flow of life because she feels so lost right now, and she's trying to find all of that right now too. And I guess in a way she does disappear in her life, but in a way that probably is not what she expected. But yeah, her character is just so interesting, and all of like the performances really make you feel so confused about what her real intentions are, like what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
Like one scene that I like wrote down for like her performance at least was when they were all I think they all got to get like tripe stew or whatever after their flight landed, and she's like super drunk, but she's like half crying, half like laughing kind of. And so it really makes you question like, what is her, is she a sociopath, like what's going on with her? So yeah, just like the whole confusion of like where she seems to be as a person is so interesting to me too, because I feel like you can break down all of her actions and like all of her decisions basically are based on her turbulence as a person. So that's also really interesting to me.
I think it's also really cool, because I was thinking about it now as you were talking about it. I think her and Jung-soo are very similar characters. Like they're both very just lost and kind of just, though I think she's more like trying to search for something to grab onto, he's kind of just accepted her as like his thing to like grab onto,
his future, yeah,
hope. But yeah, I think that's really interesting to have them be so similar as characters, I think. And although I think she's just so fascinating, every scene she's in is just so, I wanted like know what's in her brain. It's just so interesting. I love her character. I think it's so cool. And I love the way that she like speaks. Like the way that her lines are written, they're so interesting compared to, I mean, the other characters surrounding it and the other conversations throughout it. I like one scene that stood out to me when she was talking about like the great hunger at the beginning of the film when they were eating dinner together. That scene felt so much, and it's like a weird comparison, but it felt like Drive. There was so many big long pauses between their like sentences, but it felt comfortable but also unsettling, and it was so weird because I had never seen a film that feels like Drive that did the same type of conversations style. And I just think it's cool that was like that. I don't know. I love that.
Can I talk about that Drive comparison?
Go
I found the Drive comparison for me was with the relationship with the three leads. So you have the main two, and they have their conversations are usually like short, like long pauses, you know, like a few words here and there. But then the third person comes in and they like talk all the time. And that was basically Standard's character in Drive when he comes into the relationship and he's always talking. And it's like a big contrast from the two leads we've established. Yeah.
You know, it definitely, that's when I was watching it, it felt very similar to Drive, style-wise and story-wise.
Haven't watched that, but anyways, Parthy like brought up the crying and laughing scene, which I want to touch upon again because that was in her most like vulnerable state, right? And because she's crying and laughing, that's pretty much her. She's crying and laughing all the time. She's laughing because, you know, on the surface, she's like content with her job, you know? She seems to be quite surface level. Like how she describes doing pantomime for fun pretty much. Like she wants to go to Africa, like seemingly for a very like, because she wants to find meaning, but she doesn't really have meaning. And that's why she's crying. She's kind of crying out for finding this meaning because like this great hunger she's talking about. She compares little hunger, which is like literally being hungry, to great hunger, which is the meaning of life pretty much, or searching for that meaning. And yeah, that to me is interesting when she starts crying and laughing.
Can we talk, do you guys want to start talking about the titular burn, the titular burning?
I think that's a very good topic. This will be a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could all just like start with like that scene in particular. Parvati already talked about it. Yeah, it's such a great scene. I think that's when I split the movie in half, as I said before.
Is this the ending or like the middle part where
she dances topless during the sunset and then
the greenhouse burns?
Yeah, the greenhouse burns type.
Okay.
And when Ben essentially brings up his hobby, and it's like, oh, okay, I remember the title of the movie now. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I mean, someone else can go first if they want.
Oh,
okay.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like the title "Burning" was very like, I remembered so much. I remembered it at so many parts of the movie. So it wasn't just that point that was like, oh, the movie's called Burning, so this means something. Like, there's just so many, like, I think it's similar with like the impending doom, like the impending burning. Like, I knew it was gonna come up because there were so many points in time where they're burning something. Like, they're constantly smoking cigarettes. That's one burning, I guess. They're like, and then they like smoke weed or whatever at that point too. And then they're also, I don't know, there's several points where they're burning some kind of thing. And then also the sunset is another type of burning that they try to bring up too. But when he finally brings up the fact that he literally burns greenhouses too, I was like, oh, is this what the movie's about? Like, is that what the burning is supposed to be? Like, it can't possibly just be a greenhouse. It must mean something else. And I also thought that might tie into, because it's such a unique and odd hobby for someone to have too. And I thought maybe like that also ties into a little bit of his like privilege as a rich person. He can just afford to go burn down an abandoned greenhouse. Yeah, that someone else possibly could use later, or like that might have been owned by somebody else, some poor person, but he can just go on and he can like allow himself to go and burn down a whole greenhouse as like a hobby, and that gives him life. That's what gives him, like, he needs to do it once every 2 months to like keep it going, keep this like internal flame going of like, this is what I like to do. And that also just turns into like the most concrete thing, you know, that he actually does when he like says that he plays. That kind of becomes the only real concrete activity you actually know that he does. And so it makes you really question like who he is, like what he does for a job if that's his hobby. And it's very confusing. But I think like just that being the turning point was, it felt like a turning point, but at the same time it felt like I still had no idea what was going to happen, because it was a turning point of like, I understand that he is not a normal person and I understand what this is, but I still don't know what to expect from what's going to come too. So yeah.
Yeah, so burning greenhouses is a really interesting thing to talk about, because there's a lot to it surrounding that conversation. And like, are the greenhouses a metaphor? Are they literal? For my personal like reading of it was, I think maybe most of us saw it like this, but the greenhouses are just like murders, you know, like he's burning greenhouses, aka burning young Korean women. And I think this because he sees, like, he was comparing greenhouses as like, you know, worthless, just standing there, like devoid of life. Whereas when we think of greenhouses, they're full of life. But maybe he doesn't see that. And I think he's probably targeting like young Korean women who seem aimless, who seem like very easy to fall into his trap of like wealth and like very surface level attractions. And like he was talking about how like there's no judging in the burning, it is nature. Kind of like how he's like referring to himself as God, you know, like he decrees like what gets to be burned.
I was gonna say that. That was
yeah, and it's so creepy when he was talking about like, oh, I do it like every few months, once every few months and stuff, and how he gets a bass in his heart every time he does it. It's like literally like what you would hear a psychopath say, like he gets a kick out of murder. But yeah, that's what I'd say about the greenhouses.
Yeah, definitely when I saw that scene, because to me like greenhouses symbolize life, basically. Obviously in a more literal sense it's like plants, obviously, but that's still like life, basically. Plants. But when I saw that, it really brought me back to, which is funny because you brought it up earlier, when he was like the cooking scene where he was saying like he to feed a god and he sees himself as this sort of god figure. To me, like the greenhouse scene, I was like, oh wow, like the greenhouse symbols life and he is basically playing God and just like taking the life away and burning it away. So that was like one thing that I saw. And then also it could connect to the I play thing because he's like playing God, but also that maybe a stretch.
I
But,
mean,
you know,
I feel like that works. That's pretty good.
you know, that's how I figured that out.
He's just role playing God.
Yeah, you know,
Casual God role play.
Yeah, normal everyday Tuesday afternoon, right? Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. No. But
Yeah.
that's definitely how that scene was in my perspective.
Hmm. And so after the dancing scene, we right away see a flashback to a kid looking at a burning greenhouse. What do you guys think about that?
I feel like that's I always what's his name? Jung-soo. Like Jung-soo is a kid, right? Isn't that was my interpretation, like that's him. Like maybe something similar happened in his childhood where something literally burned in front of him, but it could also be a symbol of like everything from his childhood is burning away. All his past relationships are essentially being cut from him, leaving him like alone, essentially.
Mm.
That was my interpretation of that scene.
I interpreted it as Ben because the child's reaction is not like, it didn't seem fearful to me like a regular child would react to it. Like it seemed like he seemed to get some kind of joy out of like watching this thing burning, because it is like kind of beautiful like watching it burn, but at the same time when you know what it is, or like symbolically how you feel about a greenhouse too, it's not necessarily something that you'd feel so comfortable going up so close to this giant burning of a greenhouse too. So I interpreted it as like Ben and like his initial reaction when he did see that happening, and like maybe it's like that's possibly the reason why he still does this like greenhouse burning, and it's possibly evolved into what he does now as a quote unquote greenhouse burning, because that's what like gives him this thrill since he was a child as well. So that's what I interpreted.
I feel like that
But
wouldn't be him though, because the movie's so Jung-soo centered, like everything's from his perspective. And like I think it cuts to him waking up too after that scene, right? Or
I think I expected it to be Ben waking up from that too, just because the way that the child reacted seemed so much more like characteristic to Ben.
but like Jung-soo becomes fascinated with the burn. Like that's what drives the second half of the movie is like, what is the burn? He's searching for the greenhouse that got burned down, and he becomes obsessed with this mystery, essentially. So you could see him as also being obsessed with a burning in a way. But the kid did look more like Stephen Yuen than.
Yeah, when I watched it, I also thought it was like Ben, but I could totally see why you could also see Jung-soo. I think maybe it's a little bit interchangeable, but when I first saw that, it was not really like a symbolic meaning. I just saw that as like the whole like that idea that, and it was not really that smart, but the 3 signs of like children turning into serial killers. That's what it reminded me of. It's called, I looked it up now, it's called the McDonald Triad, which is funny because that's my last name. But
no, Emma, you trying to say something?
No, but like first is being cruel and like abusing or killing animals, and then also once setting fire, and then the other one is regularly wetting the bed, but that's not related. The other 2 aren't related. But when I saw that, it reminded me of that, so I was like, oh damn, this is early signs. So that's what it meant to me. But I could see a more symbolic meaning of it being Jung-soo versus being Ben. But to me, that's what it represented. It was a more literal, this is him at a young age showing signs to what would soon come in the future.
Who, Ben or Jung-soo?
Well,
I feel like it'd be so weird for him to cut to Ben because it's so Jung-soo centered.
I guess you could say both though at the same time, because both of them.
Well, I feel like Ben is someone Jung-soo like aspires to be in a way, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I brought that up was because like it seems so 50-50 split from what I've seen on the internet. Like people can support both arguments pretty well. And personally, I did see it like Parvati and Emma, like how it was like a literal thing. Like he saw this like thing full of life just burned, and to him that was beautiful to him. So that partially may have influenced him. But your point, JJ, and stuff, I am slowly like agreeing with that a lot more and more the more I think about it as well. But also, I think it doesn't necessarily have to be Jong-soo because he's the main character. I think that was that scene specifically was a very artistic choice. It was very like, there was no other scene like that. Like that was the first time we get this really weird, sudden flashback. And to me, it seemed very abstract. And I also would like to connect that with like, that happens after Ben kind of leaves with Hanmi. And during that conversation before they leave, Ben was talking about how his next burn victim, his next greenhouse is like within his grasp. It's like he's been watching it for very near, within like 2 months. Like he's been watching it for 2 months. And that to me was, you know, like Hanmi. And I think the point where we see that flashback burn is the point where he kills Hanmi. That's the last point when we see her. We don't see her again after that scene.
Well, we see her one more time.
Oh,
but
do
it's
we?
it's
Oh, do we?
it's a dream.
Okay.
Her jacking off.
Okay.
Sean
Yeah. Okay. But basically that's the last time we see her in the flesh. And I really do think that burning flashback was the moment where he killed her, or the night where she died.
Yeah, well, you could definitely see that. We could go all into our interpretations now about like what happened to Haimi.
Actually, I had one more thing about like the burning dream, but I was thinking like maybe if it's not maybe to connect the fact that like Jung-soo wakes up afterwards from what it seems like it's a dream. Maybe I was thinking maybe it could even be like him dreaming about Ben possibly like when he found his love for burning down greenhouses, and like when he was a child, like what his reaction might have been seeing a burning greenhouse too. But I really like Alex's point of like it also being like the last point that we really do see Hanmi too. So I think that would be that's like a really cool like double, like what's it called, double meaning kind of thing of like it is also her like burning away finally and never seeing her again. And I think it's like also I think that at that point like after Jung-soo essentially calls her a whore as she's leaving, yeah, I think it's like the perfect timing for it to happen too, because she never speaks to him after that, so he assumes that she's just angry at him and doesn't want to like keep speaking to him. And so like that's why she's like ignoring him all this time, but she's ignoring him for possibly other reasons too. So
that's a good point.
Very, yeah.
All right, so do we want to get into our what we think happened at the ending? What character reactions? Does anyone want to go first? I mean, Alex technically kind of gave his explanation for the whole thing, but then I guess I'll just say I think the movie just leaves it open ended that like any explanation, you know, like you can't really be wrong.
Yeah, I have I have a personal bias on what happened like while I was watching it, but like I can really see like many different ways it could have gone or been interpreted, which is great. So
yeah,
go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I guess so like my interpretation has changed like just over this past conversation. I've just been like reflecting on the movie, but it's still like essentially the same. I think Ben, like I think it's his like I'm like I think it's his job to burn women essentially. Like they go to him to disappear. That was my initial like interpretation. But the more I think about it, I think maybe Haimi specifically wanted to disappear, and like for other ones, he just like does like he kills them, or maybe not even kill. Like he just like what I don't know. It's like I feel like that doesn't need to be essentially an answer. But what Ben said about Haimi and her relationship with Jung-soo, Ben said like Jung-soo is like the only person Haimi could find solace with, like the only person she found interesting. And when Jung-soo insults her, I feel like that was the turning point. Like that's when she's like, oh, I'm actually alone in this world. And that's when she went along with the disappearance she's always wanted, her like great meaning of life, her burning, and that's when she disappears. And the reason I think Ben does this for like a living, it's like we see that last scene with him like doing like a girl's like makeup or something. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, he's doing makeup.
Yeah, like maybe like is that what he does? Like he's like he sends people away, gives them a new identity. That could also be like an interpretation, I think. And like I think Haimi from her whole character arc is her trying to run away. the plastic surgery I mentioned earlier, I think it's because that was like a step for her to like change her appearance essentially, because she's trying to get away from all this debt, all this credit card debt that she's like piled up, and she just wants to leave like the life she knew. And I think whatever way, like it could have been murder, but it could have been something else. I think Ben essentially gave that to her. And I think because it's an incel main character, Chung-soo was mad about this because Haemi was like the one solace he had in his life. And I think in that rage, he like killed Ben and essentially like purged him too. After the movie, I searched up the short story it's based on, and it's barn burning. That's what it is in the little short story it's based off of. And essentially the plot's the same, except the main character is married and he's a little older. But at the end, he becomes obsessed with the burn, the main character of the book. And I think Jung-soo, in a way, his obsession with burning doesn't go in that same direction, I think. I feel like he kind of rejects that. And yeah, just that murder scene. I think it's one shot. It's a great scene. It's just the culmination of all his emotions and like this entire investigation that he's built up.
Yeah, dude, that scene was beautiful. Like a one take wonder. It was actually amazing.
Coordinated with even like the truck driving by too.
Yeah, and like how the burning car in the background, we could see in the back of his window while he's driving away. It's perfectly composed. It's so good.
Do you think they hid like a couple cuts in there, or was that a true
I haven't looked at it again. I haven't looked at it in a while, but like in first impression, it looked incredible. Wouldn't be surprised if it was one shot.
Even as the scene is like fading to just black too, you just see it still burning in the back, and it's so incredible.
Yeah,
like I love that feeling that it's like still gonna be burning in the back of your brain too. Like, whoa, all of these things happening. Yeah. Also, I really liked your interpretation of it, JJ. Even though that wasn't my interpretation of it, that's so interesting that you saw it that way.
It is interesting.
That's like, I feel like that like makes me more interested in like knowing what happens to her. Like, where did she actually go if it wasn't actually death that was what took her?
Like it could be death, like death, but I feel like death is just like the simplest solution. Like, you know, like he throws the bodies into the lake he was looking at, like could be one thing.
Yeah.
But like, I've already forgot what was I going to mention. Like they said, like Ben was mentioning, like police don't even like care about the people, and I think Alex made a good point about like the Korean women who's just like aimless. It's like no one actually really does care about these people disappearing, and so like Ben offers that solution. I feel like that has, because because like that last scene when he like paints the girl's face, it's like, why is he like helping her in a way? It's
yeah, I haven't thought about that makeup scene that way for sure. For me, it's like before the makeup scene, I think I was gearing up to see like proof that this guy's a serial killer. Like, all right, now we're gonna see him like commit a crime, but now he's just like doing makeup, and it's like it was such a peculiar, odd scene to look at. And I didn't really know what to think of it, but to think of like the movie is not telling me enough. Like I'm not sure what this guy is doing. Like it seems awkward and a bit psychopathic, but maybe he's not a murderer, you know? We never get like direct evidence of that. And that's why the makeup scene to me was very odd. And
I think in a way too, like it makes me question why I'm so bothered by this like makeup scene. Like why am I so like unsettled by him putting makeup on a girl?
Because we're expecting to see murder happen.
I was gonna say, I think, and I've seen a lot of people say like this is like what his job was, and I could totally see it, and it's a way darker version. But it's that he sex traffics.
Yeah, I was thinking like he's a human trafficker.
Yeah,
too.
and that's what I thought. I mean, obviously, that's exactly what I was thinking. And the makeup scene to me was like, oh, it's unsettling because I could see that as, oh, he's getting ready to, just traffic her, and that's the end. And he's kind of yet again in that position of playing God and just taking.
That's really good.
In these horrible lives that they feel meaningless and they feel neglected by the world, and no one knows them or no one really cares about them anymore, so they're easy targets, and he takes them and traffics them. But that's really, 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 really dark. And it's
but I believe that's really
well, I mean, like murder's just as dark. Essentially.
Yeah,
that's true.
But
I feel like any kind of interpretation is usually dark in a way.
Well, no, yours was kind of nicer. It was like a nicer version of.
I'm just thinking she's like stored up in like I don't want to spoil Parasite. Just she's in a Parasite scenario right now. If you know what I mean by that.
Parasite.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
I just want to point out, so like the reasons why we all have like different interpretations of this too is because we like take the different clues and pieces that we do see of like their interactions and like what you see left of like her too. But the scene that like really got me was in the beginning when you first see Jung-soo at Ben's house. He's like going through his stuff in his bathroom, and there's the one drawer which has like a bunch of like jewelry and random things in it, and you assume it's like all of it. You assume all of it belongs to Han-mi, and you don't really think anything of it, and you're like, oh, okay, so she's like staying over at this place, so like her stuff is all
Oh no,
here.
I totally thought those were different women.
Yeah, no,
okay.
I was
that's
like,
what I thought too. I was like, oh wow,
because you could see a name on one.
Yeah,
And she said she never wears like watches or anything when she put it on for the first time. She's like, oh, I never wear.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I think I didn't necessarily think it was just her stuff, but I also was like, maybe he's just like he entertains women a lot. Like that's why he also has this like random case of like makeup too. I assumed it was like he keeps this in preparation for like in case a woman is there and he wants to like have her stuff be there like in case she needs it. So like I was like, okay, so he's like used to entertaining women at his house and stuff too. So I just thought it was like adding to his character as like a person that like Jung-soo is seeing, like, oh, okay, he like sees a lot of women, or is currently seeing Han-mi. But then you see it a second time, and then her watch is there too, and so that's what was that's what mainly confirmed to me that, and also the fact that he had her cat in the end too is what confirmed to me that she had actually died, because I didn't think that she would just like let him have her cat, or like, do you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of those things, the cat. Yeah. Like those things and those scenes kind of gave me a sense of finality, and I don't know if that's just like me my like the way that I see it, but like it gave me a sense of finality of like these are the main objects that you associate with Han-mi, and they're suddenly his. And so his like whole thing of like being a god and being able to like take all this stuff away from her, including her life, so now he can own these things that she used to have.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with that for sure. It gave me like, it was making me believe that this guy was a killer, which is why I expected the makeup scene to be like him plotting to murder someone. But I think there is some nuance to the watch and the cat, actually. I think the cat has a bigger reason, but the watch is like, I believe we saw like another employee of like where she was working at, like the volunteer thing we were working at, like Chong-soo was talking to this other girl. I believe she was wearing the same watch. But I think it's a watch that they all wear. I'm not super sure. But
it was one of the prizes that you win when you're in the raffle.
Yeah, I think because we see that twice, like we see like the first interaction with Han-mi, and then the second interaction with like where she works talking to another woman. I think maybe it's like the movie's trying to tell us like this watch isn't anything special. But it's still weird that it's there, you know.
And the cat, but I feel
the cat, we never see the cat.
We never do see the cat, so like you never know.
We never see the, and just because he
applies to the name, it doesn't mean for sure that
exactly, because like I think cats, I'm not sure scientifically, but I think cats respond less to their name than dogs do, or something like that. And just because the movie is cut the way that the cat begins moving because he called, his name out, but maybe he'll just respond to anything, like if they're said like a name, then he'll respond and come back. The fact that we never see a cat in the apartment is so odd to me. That's like definitely done on purpose. I'm sure Lee Chang-dong had so many ideas for this cat being such a weird symbol. But yeah, my interpretation is that Boil the cat, I don't have anything to say.
You're burning water.
It's so weird. Yeah.
My interpretation is they didn't have enough money to get an actual cat. No, I was kidding.
Oh my God.
But they did get an actual cat.
They couldn't get a cat on that specific day of shooting.
Yeah, so
in the apartment.
It's fine. It's fine. It's a cat.
It's a symbol. It's a symbol now.
I'm joking. I don't think that's actually the case, but
yeah, the cat's interesting.
Yeah, I think also like just the sign of like if so, I think in a way, like if so, I interpreted like the cat as like being hers, and so he now owns this cat. But the fact that he like lies about where he gets the cat too is what also gets me. And I feel like that could actually go in any direction that we have really talked about too, because like he doesn't necessarily want to give like the actual explanation as to why she doesn't exist anymore. But it was just very interesting to me.
No, I agree. I feel like the cat and the watch are kind of a confirmation that Ben has something to do with her disappearance. Or maybe not, like, because, like, as Alex said, like, you could also give different explanations for why those things are there.
It's probably the strongest confirmation in the movie, but the movie still gives you some nuance to it, or you can think about it.
Yeah.
No, a lot of nuance. I feel like the movie's its nuance is like the greatest part of it. Just one more quick thing I wanted to mention. Like, we were talking about how Ben is like an alien to this world. Even his name is Ben. It's an American name, and everyone else has a Korean.
Ben.
Everyone else has a Korean name. So, yeah. Do you guys have interpretations of why he just straight up killed Ben at the end? Is it just because he loved her and he thought he murdered her? Is that like?
I mean, I think so. And I also just thought that it was interesting because I would assume that when he had his like realization or whatever too, that he would have reacted more, but then he didn't. And then he just goes to kill him like afterwards too. So that kind of like tells me a lot about his character as well that I didn't really expect, because I was like in my head the whole time I was like, you idiot, why aren't you like seeing that he very clearly like did something to her or is like doing something, but he doesn't react in any way when he like seems to be understanding this either. He just kind of leaves or is like, I need to leave.
I think I have an explanation for that.
Because he's an incel.
No, he's okay. Yeah, he is an incel. No, well, I feel like that's
everything.
Yeah, essentially that you can explain his character like that. But I think he sees himself in his father. Yeah. Do you want to say something about that, Emma?
Yeah. So that kind of made me think of, because I watched a bunch of essays, like video essays about it, and a lot of them were saying it's like it's him showing that he is like his father. And then it brought up an interesting thing in my mind, not in the video essays, of like nature versus nurture in a way, because a lot of them were saying like, oh, it's in his blood that he would act out in that way. And then I was like, well, you could argue that, but you could also argue that he's been surrounded by someone who was known to be somewhat aggressive, and it impacted him to do something like that. And because the court case was going on at the time as well, it's like constantly on the back of his mind, and he just like snapped one day. And I just think it's an interesting conversation to like further, like, is it nature, is it nurture? But that's just like something that was brought up in my mind. And I think honestly, this film is like one of those ones where you can just talk for hours and hours and hours about all the little different things, because there's so much in it and there's so many different interpretations. Like, I just think it's really interesting. But yeah,
I think for the audience, we would want to clarify what happens at the end real quick.
Well, I mean, like, if you've watched this far, I think you know.
Oh, sure, you're right. Yeah.
We've essentially spoiled the movie.
We gave our spoiler section. Duh. But like,
we've spoiled everything.
Yeah, it was such a raw, like, cathartic scene. It was so good.
Yeah. Okay. So about his father. So like he refuses to write about his father because I think it's like he sees his own guilt in his father. His like the same mistakes. And when he finally sees his father get sentenced to prison, he's like, "Is that me? Essentially, is that who I am too?" And it's like weird. Like, why are we watching him masturbate in Amy's apartment? But I think the later scene where he sees when he's with her, I think shows to us that he pictures that he's having sex with her there all the time. And he's like, oh, this was my source of happiness. This was like my sunlight essentially on me. And when she disappears, that's like the rage, like it cuts to him alone again. And it's like, oh, he finally realizes she's gone and she's not there anymore. And I think they talked about his father being built up with rage. He was also building up with rage this whole time, like finding all these clues about Ben and being completely mad at Ben when you first see him. That it just exploded into this moment of like passion where he like grabs a knife and just like kills him.
Yeah. And in that death scene, it's so interesting because like the last thing Ben does is cry and hold Jung-soo. It's such a weird.
Fuck. I didn't even realize that he cries in that last scene.
It's such a weird reaction. What I take from that is that for some reason, him being killed is like the most tender thing to happen to him. It's the most emotional, resonant thing to have happened in Ben's life. Because obviously earlier he was like, he never cried in his life. That was the first time he cried. Like for some reason, getting murdered was the most emotionally resonant thing.
I feel like it could be him accepting that he's not a god anymore. It's like he's capable of, because like the whole time, like he's like when he felt jealous for the first time. Yeah, it's like he's immortal. It's like when human things are attributed to him. It's like, oh no, what's happening?
Oh, human things like death is like attributed to him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's finally crying.
Yeah, but in a way, it looks like he loves Jang-soo in that scene. It's so interesting. I love that scene.
Plot twist: he actually murdered Hanmi to get with Jang-soo.
Oh my god. He kisses him like before he dies.
Now that's the interpretation I like.
No,
guys, I was wrong. There is an incorrect interpretation.
No, fight me.
All the clues point to this moment. They're in love with each other, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Come on.
So, do we have any like final thoughts? We've already talked for actually a good while. Do we have any like nitpicks or like a performance shout out? We could just combine segments.
One more thing about the ending for me.
Okay.
I saw this in the video essay, but I'm not super sure about it, but it seems interesting to bring up. But before the whole ending scene, the whole one-shot murder scene, gassing and oiling a car, before that, we see Jang-soo alone in Hanmi's room, kind of like writing, right? Was he writing?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but actually, no, before that scene, my bad. The scene when he like does the makeup, right? Before that, we see Jang-soo kind of writing alone in a room. And when we see Ben kind of like in the makeup room and stuff, that's the first time we see a scene featuring only him. Every time we see Ben, it's like framed where Jang-soo's either looking at him or in the same frame as him.
Yeah.
Basically, like 100%, that's what it is. And this is weird because people have thought that maybe this point on, this is like Jang-soo writing about it, or like his, I don't know, like his fantasy on Ben. Like he's so obsessed with Ben that he's gonna write his own conclusion. I don't know. It's weird.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And like him like killing him in such a surreal way. It was also written out of like passion or something like that.
Ooh. Wait, that reminds me of JJ's story. I think you had a story where it's like the premise is that like artists need to have some kind of
emotional catharsis to like create a story.
Very
nice.
Sorry, I think I cut you off. What were you gonna say?
Who? Me?
Alex.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. I think that also makes me think about how like at the very beginning too, Ben is like, oh, I would like to tell you my story one day. So like, would that actually have happened, or I don't know. Like, what would he have said if he did tell him his story? I'm curious now.
I don't know. Well, he kind of did with the burning greenhouses. That's kind of his story.
I suppose. I don't know. A part of me wants to think that he would have said more, but.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, like even though the movie was super long, when after the makeup scene, I was so ready for his whole third act of him like pursuing Ben and catching him in his crime, but the movie just ends after that. We just see him kill him without getting an answer, and in a way it kind of stomps on the movie trying to give us a concrete answer. Like the audience is trying to find an answer. I was trying to find an answer, but it just ends it like that in such a beautiful way, but really scary way. And that was really cool to me, but also weird, and it felt unsatisfying, but in the moment, but I was very satisfied thinking about it.
Cool.
I also want to know, like, who else is like Ben really associated with, and like would anyone come to find him if they didn't know where he was, like, or like would his friends?
Well, I mean, like he has like he has friends, and he has like assuming a family because he goes to like church, which plays more into like his god complex in a way.
Yeah. So like, would there be like an investigation after that, and like would
probably I'm assuming. I don't like to like make my own headcanon for something like that's so ambiguous.
Yeah. It does seem that his relationships with his friends are like very surface level though. Like they just come for his house and stuff.
No, like see what Emma said about like human trafficking. I thought that was like the ring right there. Like that was like the elites who like scout out.
That's how I viewed all of that, definitely.
Yeah, because they all like focus on the girl in those scenes, and the girl's all giving her own story. That's why that second girl who's always late all the time really puts into like perspective, like these are like planned events possibly. Like each of these moments, these aren't spontaneous. They have like a purpose.
I also
And
saw
he yawns
something,
because he's
okay. Oh, sorry, I'll go.
Yeah.
I saw something where
wait, he yawns because what? I'm sorry. I feel like that was just a quick little.
Oh, no, I was just thinking he yawns because he's like, oh, this is just another like introduction to this new person that we're gonna bring into our. This is just a business meeting? Like that's what he's.
Yeah, something like that. I feel like it's also like he's not really interested in the women.
Mm-hmm.
That's proof he's not actually interested.
Yeah. What were we gonna say, Emma?
Oh, I was gonna say I saw in someone's like interpretation, like with the sex trafficking thing, they were saying how a lot of people, Africa is a big hub for sex trafficking, so they connected that as well too. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. So, but that's
Whoa, that's why he's in Africa.
You know, it's a really like it's one of the worst places for sex trafficking, and they like bring it back.
I truly wonder what like Lee Chang-dong was actually like thinking when making this movie.
Yeah, I know, because it probably it maybe isn't sex trafficking.
It's probably wildly different in his eyes, but like he meant for it to be hard.
It really is a romance between Ben and.
Yeah. Yes, it's my fanfic, says Emma.
Yes.
Oh my God. Wait, does he not have any kind of like interviews or anything?
I feel like it'd be one of those like I put it on the screen, like it's right there.
Yeah.
Quick answer.
I think it's like that. Yeah.
Like if I wanted to tell you, it would be in the movie type of thing.
Yeah, he's a very old and wise director.
Yeah.
That's all
I gotta say.
Any other story thoughts? Because like I would like to get into like a little bit into cinematography and sound real quick.
Oh yeah, let's talk about technicals real quick. Just dive into that before because I have like one more final wrap up, but.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you guys think of the cinematography?
Beautiful. I know we're like, oh, Tarantino film, but like this is digital cinematography is right there, man. Like you get a whole pristine, clean look. The lighting is insane in so many, like even at like dinner scenes, like this feels like like a neon type of lighting, like even the yellow lighting when they first have their conversation. Digital cinematography, I think it like opens the door for like a lot of post editing in terms of like color correction, what you want to really like the look you want to nail. And Sean Baker on Letterboxd, like he's always like a film purist, even though he shot a movie on an iPhone. He talked about how like, oh, I wish it was shot on film, but then he goes into being like, but the sunset scene probably wouldn't have looked as good as it did if it was shot on film. So that's my
it was so blue and orange at the same time in the same frame. Yeah.
Even like a shot like in Ben's apartment where they're like indoors and then they transition outside to the two on the balcony. It's like the lighting change there. It's like very impressive, like small technical things like that throughout the movie.
Harv, Emma.
Well, I mean,
they're film purists. Like... They hate it. They want it shot on film.
Oh, okay.
Tarantino fanboys.
No,
you can't watch it at the New Bev. Sorry.
I really liked the lighting in it. I thought it was a nice combination between like natural and artificial light, like what you were saying. It starts off, I think, very natural lighting and kind of progresses into more like neon kind of. But at the same time, the natural lighting is still there. But I thought it was really pretty overall. But
I felt the same too. I feel like there isn't anything specific I can really point out because the entirety of it is just so consistently pretty and so consistently like well shot. I think the thing that I would point out is like the very ending of like the framing of the fire, like within the.
Probably my favorite shot. Truck.
Yeah. Gorgeous. I knew that was going to be your favorite shot too because I was like, that's something that Alex would want. That's definitely something I see you trying to recreate in like a future project.
I'll copy it.
Like, with
the same exact scene. I don't care like what the characters are. They're going to kill each other.
Nice.
But I just want to say it's really commendable how like
better be sorry.
How like consistently it's just commendable how consistently like perfect each shot is framed, and also like the lighting is just so perfect for what is needed too. Like just like even the sunset scene too, it's like as the lighting changes with like the form of the sunset happening too, and just like I think it's just like the reflection of like the soft light against like Hanmi's body and stuff too is just so pretty that it seems very like classy, even though she's like half naked too. It feels like a very classy like representation of like her soul and body feeling like one with this sunset too. So it's like just everything that needs to feel connected to each other feels that way through the lighting too, which I really enjoy.
It also looks like night. Like that's like some like movies have like their fake night, but that actually looked like night, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Who said the thing? Was it Parvati about? She talked about the stages of sunlight, right? It's like it goes to this color and this color. I feel like the movie also takes color palettes as it goes through its stages.
Yeah.
Like it ends on like this like dark blue, like like the sun is setting, right?
It's like,
so, like I wonder if like
I
wonder if the like that color palette that the film takes matches her description of a sunset.
Oh
yeah,
because like it starts off bright and yellow with like them in so I want to like, but I don't remember specifically the order. I'm definitely gonna rewatch this movie. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, I should too. It's probably pretty good to rewatch for sure. With all these new meanings in your head, you can make more meanings as well. As for the cinematography, it's like I think the movie's a great representation of like raw, real life and reality, but kind of like a heightened sense of it.
Heightened, yeah. That's digital cinematography. It gives a really heightened sense to everything.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great. It's like everything feels natural, but like it's presented in such a, I don't know, picturesque way, and it's just perfect. Like I don't have any problems with it. Like, definitely the last shot stuck out the most, like Parvati said. But throughout the whole film, it was like there was no shot where I was bothered by. It was just very natural, very like, and that's good. Like nothing stood out too much because like it was that good, and they wanted it to be like that, I'm sure.
There was one shot that it's not necessarily like, oh, this is so beautiful, but I wrote it down because I thought it was funny. But it's like when he's I think when Jong-soo is like in the house or whatever, and he has a TV on and it's Donald Trump talking, and in the background he's just peeing. Like I thought it was so funny. But like
Art.
the framing of the shot too is just so interesting because it's like his like blown out face on this really old TV with like Jong-soo peeing in the background. It's just so fun.
Is it political commentary?
Yeah, I feel like commentary. I totally forgot. There's a total like Donald Trump scene. I think that just feeds more into like conflict in the world around them.
Yeah, yeah. It's just more pressure and stress to think about. Yeah.
Everything.
Oh yeah, and he like constantly has like the radios on for I don't know what they're saying on the radios too, but what was it? I think it's like North Korean stuff.
Oh, North Korean propaganda, like you can hear it over
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So funny. Propaganda.
No, I thought it was just interesting that he put Trump in there. It makes it seem so current. Made the movie.
I forgot that was a scene. That was funny.
Yeah, I forgot Trump is in this movie. Wow, it's crazy.
Wow.
He makes yet again another cameo.
It's the American propaganda and the North Korean propaganda, and he's
so funny.
He's being,
and it's like the director metaphorically pissing on his words. Fantastic.
Oh, whoa, that's good. I like that. I like that interpretation.
I like that.
I like that.
Hell yeah.
I mean, he probably doesn't like Trump from that scene. It's not a very glamorous scene for Trump. It's not.
I mean, yeah, he's like in a like super extreme close up, and it's just like a completely overblown image.
And we hear peeing. Yeah, good stuff.
It's good.
Yeah. Now what?
I have one more thing to say. Like, if everyone's like pretty wrapped up.
Yeah.
This film reminded me a lot of Under the Silver Lake. Has anyone here seen it? I think I'm the only one who's seen it. Okay, so they both basically have intense digital cinematography, like total like heightened reality, but it still looks realistic and it's like that picturesque type of thing. Both have an incel protagonist who's like doesn't take their responsibilities and is pretty much floating through life, and they both become obsessed with the disappearance of a missing girl. That's essentially the plot to both of the movies. But I think the key difference with the two movies is that Under the Silver Lake kind of gives you the answers to everything at the end, and Burning doesn't. And I think that makes Burning a much better film. Burning is something I can think about for a long time, but Under the Silver Lake, it's like, oh, okay, I think that's it. I feel like that's everything that you could have told. So I think it just shows that sometimes it's better not to wrap it up in a bow and just leave things open-ended. I think Burning was very successful at that, and I'm really happy about this recommendation. Thank you, because I probably would not have watched it if it was.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything else to say?
Yeah, that's a great point on how it's much better for movies to like not wrap up everything in a bow, because like that doesn't let conversations happen. I think when we have conversations about movies, like we treat it like art. Like we all have different interpretations of it. It's great. And especially like such a masterfully made film like Burning. Like not every film can pull off like leaving things open-ended, you know? Like some films just like don't know how to end certain plot points. But it feels everything
like Under the Silver Lake too.
Okay.
Like some of it's open-ended, but it's not as juicy as something like Burning.
Yeah, and to me it feels like everything's so open-ended, but like well crafted and so purposeful.
Yeah, I think I like it when I think I dislike it when people leave things open-ended, but they leave it so open-ended that it literally could go any way, any direction you possibly want it to. But I think movies like this do a good job because they provide these essential like milestones of like this is like certain things that happen, and you can interpret their meanings differently based off of what you think, but they still like add so much to it being like this is still going in this like general direction. So like all of us thinking that she obviously disappeared, but it was like, and it was because of Ben, but we don't know if it was like death necessarily or just like, you know, finding a new identity or something too. It's interesting and more exciting to me when there's very possible reasons of like things happening versus like having to like basically create a whole story with whatever is left out too. So I think that's why I really enjoyed this too, because I really liked our conversations too. Like the fact that all of us think that different things happen, but like the fact that they're all kind of in a similar direction is so cool to me.
Yeah.
We didn't mention the phone call that Jung-soo got, and it was like ambiguous sounds. That makes me think more kidnapping, but at the same time, like when I think about her character, it's like she wanted to disappear. Like that was the great
that freaks me out, man, thinking about it.
Yeah, that's really
also because recently I've been getting a lot of weird phone calls and they don't say anything.
Oh my gosh. Also, I've been getting so many phone calls. Every day I get 3 phone calls like from random numbers. It's annoying.
No, wait, throughout the movie he gets calls and they don't say anything. Right?
Yeah, that makes me sad.
No, because also I was reading online and it's like sex traffickers have all of these like methods of getting people, and one of them is like calling you, making sure they can hear your voice, and they're like, okay, it's a female, like she's vulnerable because she picked up this phone call and like we're gonna track her down kind of thing. It's so scary.
Damn.
Don't play.
Don't play.
That makes it even more convincing.
That's why I never answer a phone call unless I know the person calling. They can always leave a voicemail if they need to.
Yeah, true.
Oh, man.
Okay, and on that note, thank you, Alex, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you,
Alex.
Sir, it was fun.
Hell of
Thank
a
you for having me.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back because, well, you said Parasite. Hopefully other movies too. Yeah, we haven't had a Parasite episode.
Yeah. I feel like every podcast is an obligatory Parasite episode.
That's true.
So I'll be glad to be a part of that.
Yep. I also plugged Team Fortress 2 in the last episode, but we couldn't get to that today.
Team Fortress 2 next time.
Team Fortress 2 next time. It's good, and I think Alex thinks it's good too.
I'll have a lot to say for sure.
Oh man, that'd be so fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, usually at this point in the show, we transition to like my recommendation for next week. But next week is our season finale. We're gonna be taking a break for like a month or two, or I don't know how long. Just a couple months. We'll be back for sure. All right, that's the one thing. But next week we're gonna have like in a little awards ceremony. We're gonna talk about some of our favorite things that we watched.
JJ freeze.
Okay, I thought it was.
Oh, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Sometimes you guys have been freezing.
Oh,
on
now
my
you guys.
end, so
now you guys froze
it was
on my end.
This time, but
That's how you end a podcast.
Oh, he's back.
Wait, could you guys hear me, or did I just cut off?
You cut off.
You cut off.
Oh, okay. Now Zoom is telling me my internet connection's unstable.
Uh-oh.
Cool. Anyways,
Whoa.
that's a good sign to end this soon. But anyways, I was just talking about next week, and we're just gonna talk about things we watched this past season and like some of our favorite parts of that. But thank you again, Alex, for joining. You did it.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you had fun.
Yay.
Yay. Cool.
Woo.
We end this by saying goodbye to Craig after we greeted him at the beginning. So
Goodbye to Craig.
that's
Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
Yeah, sure.
I'm scared, bro.
Every time we have a guest, why are you scared? We're not gonna bite you.
No, just hi, Craig. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by
This
how
is an interrogation.